Right, greetings everyone. I thought about time I did a community address. So this isn't training in any way, shape, or form. So please don't think it is. It's just about where we are, where we're going, and what we see the future to be for us at the moment in time. So I have written a speech, so I'm just going to go through it. I was saying to Gillian, I literally only finished it 5 minutes ago. I've been writing it for 3 weeks. So you can imagine how long it's going to be. No. So this is literally from the heart, okay? And I'm not coming to you as the host or trustee. I'm just literally talking to you as Andy. That's it today. This is me as Andy. Now, as many of you know, I've spent years searching for the answers, making huge mistakes, learning lessons the hard way and trying to help others avoid some of the same pitfalls. Now, over the last few weeks, and the hosts know this, we've seen quite a lot of people leave the community. Some have cancelled, some have gone looking for different answers, some have gone looking for quicker answers. That's okay, because nobody's forced to stay with us. Everyone must walk their own path. But every time someone leaves, it gives me the opportunity to stop and reflect. Who are we? And why are we here? And what are we actually building? Because if we don't know the answer to those questions, eventually we just become more noise in the ether. And there's already enough noise out there at this moment in time. So this is going to go through several stages of what I'm going to go through. So we're going to deal with when people join, because the truth is that when most people are currently arriving here, life's not going brilliant for them. Okay. Most people are arriving into the community carrying fear, stress, anxiety, confusion, court letters, council tax, debt, family issues, health concerns, or business challenge. Or they may just simply be feeling that something in life isn't working the way they had hoped it would. So people are arriving looking for answers. And I've noticed that when people are frightened, they become very vulnerable. They start looking for certainty. They start looking for someone who sounds confident, someone who claims to have the secret, someone who promises you a shortcut. And if I'm being honest with you, and I always will be, I know why. Because years ago I did it. We've all done it. I believe many of the things being taught throughout what people call the truth, freedom movement, or sovereign, and all of the other labels that are attached to it. Some of it sounded really convincing. Some of it sounded very empowering to me. And some of it sounded like the answer to everything. And by God, did I want that to be true. Because when you're struggling, and at that time I was, hope can sometimes feel more attractive than truth. But life has a remarkable way of teaching us lessons. And one of the hardest lessons I've ever learned is this. What we want to be true and what is true are not always the same thing. And I remember quite a few years back, by looking at all this, I changed the way I looked at everything. People know about 3.5 years ago, I stepped away from all the noise. Like many people, I was still searching though, searching for the answers, searching for certainty, searching for that one piece of information that would finally make everything make sense. And if I'm honest, part of me believed there had to be a final answer somewhere, one document, a final process, or a discovery. Something that would make all my problems disappear, something that would finally put me in control. So I kept searching. Another video, another theory, another teacher, another self-proclaimed guru, always believing that the next answer was just around the corner. But eventually, as people know, I realized something. The answer wasn't missing, and it wasn't hidden, and it wasn't being kept from me. The answer was simply this. No one's come to save me. But strangely enough, that wasn't depressing, it was liberating. And that's when I realized I have to step away from a lot of the noise. Because the moment I stopped looking for someone else to fix my life was the moment I started taking responsibility for myself. The moment I stopped searching for that certainty was the moment I started developing better understanding. I stopped chasing answers. I started asking better questions. And looking back now, I can honestly say that was one of the most pivotal turning points in my life. Because everything that followed grew from that realization. Not that I found the answer. I always knew I had the answers in me. But that I had to become willing to do the work. And over the years, I've watched a lot of people place their faith in theories. I've watched people place their faith in personalities, gurus, processes that they truly didn't understand. And I've watched the consequences. I've watched people lose homes, financial ruin, families splitting up, families suffering, literally watching relationships collapse over all this. And perhaps most painfully of all, the loudest voices in the movement disappear when the followers need them the most. This isn't said with bitterness, it's simply reality. And to me, reality matters, truth matters. Because if we're going to help people, we have a responsibility to tell the truth, even when that truth is very unpopular. Because, especially when it's unpopular, because one of the easiest things in the world is to promise magic. A magic loophole, a magic process, a magic document, a magic sentence. I'm not going to do that, and I won't do it. And the more I care about truth and popularity, because I care more about integrity than membership numbers. Now, I also care more about helping people in the long term than making them feel good for 5 minutes. There's no truth. The truth is, there are no shortcuts to wisdom, to understanding, confidence, and growth. There's certainly no shortcuts to responsibility. And remember, responsibility is 2 words. You have the ability to respond. No matter what challenge arises in our lives, there's always a space between what happens and how we respond. And within that space lies our power. That is where your freedom begins. Natural law teaches us that every effect has a cause. Every result has a cause. Outcomes has a cause. If we want different results, we must become different causes. All of this applies to your finances, relationships, health, business, communities. That's why this community exists. Not to fight the world, but to help people understand it better, to help people become stronger, calmer, wiser, more capable, more self-reliant. Because fear is often the real prison, not the council, court, or debt collector, but fear. Fear is what causes us to panic. It causes us to react instead of think. It keeps people awake at night. But when understanding replaces fear, everything changes. You stand differently. You think differently. You speak differently. You stop chasing saviors and start trusting yourself. And that trust does not come from a guru. It comes from knowledge, from experience. It comes from your growth. The more I study these principles, the less interested I become fighting the world around me. And the more interested I become in mastering the world within me. My thoughts, my emotions, fears, reactions, and choices. Because that is where your real freedom begins. Not in a courtroom, Facebook group, TikTok, whatever. Not in a document, but within you. When we stop looking for someone to save us and start taking responsibility of our own journey, question everything, include me. Question everything to me. Do not believe something because it sounds empowering. Do not believe something because everybody around you believes it. You don't believe something because you desperately want it to be true. Test it, research it, understand it, and verify it. Because reality always has the final say. Understand this, truth does not fear investigation. Truth welcomes it. And perhaps this brings me to something I've been reflecting on for a long time. Over the years, I've heard so many people say they want to bring the system down, bring down government, bring down institutions, bring down everything. But I've always found myself asking the same question. Then what? What comes next? Throughout history, whenever one system's collapsed, another system takes its place. Human beings naturally organize themselves. Families organize themselves. Communities, nations, all organize themselves. But the question isn't whether systems should exist. The question is whether people within those systems possess the wisdom, integrity, and responsibility to self-govern. Because freedom without responsibility becomes chaos. Authority without responsibility becomes tyranny. Self-governance is the bridge between the two. The answer isn't no governance. The answer is self-governance, because the society can never become more free than the people who create it. That also brings me to something else that's important. Philosophy is easy. Talking is easy. Posting on social media is easy. Opinions is very easy. But the real question should be this. What are we actually doing? How are we applying principles in the world? Because if natural law only exists in books, then it changes absolutely nothing. If responsibility only exists as a nice idea, it'll change nothing. If community is just a word we use, it'll change nothing. The real test is whether we can take these principles and apply them to our lives, to our families, to our finances, and to our communities. And that is exactly where I believe we are entering into a new chapter. For many years, people have asked the same question. If the current systems aren't serving us, what can we build instead? Fair question. And I believe it deserves a practical answer, not a theory or a protest or a slogan, but a practical answer. That's why we're developing what we're calling the Community Energy Collective.
Good morning.
Now, I'm not going to spend today discussing the technical details.
Yeah, I have, of course.
There will be plenty of time for that. What matters is the principle. The principle is simple. People working together, pooling resources, using collective buying power and removing unnecessary costs, creating better outcomes through cooperation rather than competition, not through loopholes or conflict, definitely not through wishful thinking, but through organisation, participation and collective action, and using our responsibility. In other words, applying the very principles I'm discussing. And the exciting thing is that this has the potential to save members hundreds, if not thousands of pounds a year. If I'm honest, the money isn't the most important part. But the most important part is what it represents, because for many years, a lot of people have asked, what can we do? Well, this is something we can do as a PMA. Something practical, measurable, and real. The truth is, the vision doesn't happen without people. It does not happen without participation. It doesn't happen without members who believe something better is possible. It requires commitment. It requires trust and enough people deciding that building something together is worth the effort. Because community projects don't succeed because of ideas. They succeed because people participate. They succeed because people contribute and they believe in something bigger than themselves. And that's the real opportunity in front of us, not simply to save money, but to demonstrate what's possible when people stop waiting for solutions and start creating them together. Because once you stop looking for that savior, a new question appears. What are we going to build together? This is where I go now, and people know me now. The RM community was never built to wage war against corporations. It was never built to fight councils or battle government. And it wasn't built around fear. Many people discover us through council tax discussions, debts, enforcement, processes, templates, letters, and disputes. Totally understandable, because those are often the challenges people are facing day to day when they arrive. But those challenges are not the vision. They are simply the circumstances that bring people through the door. The vision has always been much bigger. The vision has always been community, a genuine community, a place where people come together and help one another become better versions of themselves, a place where knowledge is shared, wisdom is shared, and experience is shared, a place where people support one another through life's challenges, learn natural law, explore spirituality without dogma, strengthen your mindset and improve your communication, learn practical life skills and build businesses. Help share your opportunities, develop your confidence, offer your gifts, serve one another and grow together. Because life is bigger than council tax. Life is bigger than debt and it's bigger than disputes. Life is bigger than arguments with institutions. Well, this is what I'm saying this morning, but what really excites me most is that this isn't some distant vision we're hoping to build one day. It's already happening. Right now, members are helping us test and improve new council tax process. Not because someone claims to have a magic answer, but because we're committed to learning, improving, and refining. Developing a practical solution through real-world experience. We're also launching, it's going to be launched tomorrow, that we're launching the member development journey. This isn't just another course. It's a structured pathway designed to help members grow step by step, whether you're completely new or whether you've been studying these for years. The journey is going to cover the foundational principles, natural law, mindset development, communication skills, research skills, writing documents, understanding process, critical thinking, and a lot more. Because my goal isn't to create followers. My goal is to create capable people, confident people, knowledgeable, people who think for themselves and who can support others. Basically, people and members who can navigate life's challenges without constantly looking for someone else to lead the way. Every lesson learned strengthens the individual, and every stronger individual strengthens the community. I've had members tell me they are actually sleeping properly for the first time in years. I've had members tell me they no longer panic when a letter arrives, and they tell me they feel a lot calmer, more confident, more capable. Not because their entire life changed overnight, but because they changed. Their understanding changed and perspective. Their relationship with fear changed, and that's what real transformation looks like. Not magic, not miracles, but growth. We're also expanding beyond practical education. Over the coming months, we're starting to welcome guests from a variety of different backgrounds: teachers, practitioners, researchers, spiritual explorers, people with different experiences and different perspective. Not because we're trying to tell people what to believe, but we believe in exploration. Because one of the greatest gifts we can give ourselves is the willingness to ask questions, to explore ideas, your consciousness, and the meanings of life, to explore who we are beyond our fears, our struggles, our jobs, and our labels, because we don't half love our labels. Growth is simply not about solving problems. It's about discovering possibilities. And the truth is this: we're only just getting started. This vision is bigger than me, bigger than any trustee, and bigger than any individual member. What we're trying to build here, and we are building something that can continue growing, evolving, and helping people long into the future after I'm dead. Every person who joins something unique, new experiences, new skills, new perspectives, and new wisdom, every member strengthens the whole. And if a community is built solely around fighting something, eventually it becomes defined by the very thing it opposes. I don't want that. I don't want this community to become known for what it fights. I want it to become known for what it creates, the lives it will improve, the families it strengthens, the friendships it creates, the businesses it inspires, the courage that it will awaken, and the hope it will restore. And the people it helps become who they are, who they were always capable of being. And I think perhaps that's what makes this moment so important, because everywhere we look, people are being encouraged to choose sides, to fight, to argue, to blame, to live in a constant state of outrage. We're told the answer lies in finding someone else to blame, someone else to fight, someone else to defeat. What if there is another way? What if the answer isn't found in becoming better fighters? What if the answer is found in becoming better human beings, for Christ's sake? More self-aware, more responsible, more capable, compassionate, and courageous. Imagine what happens when thousands of people begin living this way. Families where fear no longer controls every decision. Children growing up seeing responsibility instead of blame. Communities where people support one another instead of competing with one another. Just imagine neighbours becoming friends again. I live where Jen lives. People don't talk to their neighbours. Imagine people sharing skills, sharing knowledge, opportunities, and encouragement. Just imagine people solving problems together rather than waiting for someone else to fix them. Just imagine what becomes possible when enough people stop living from fear and start living from purpose. When we stop waiting for permission, start taking responsibility. When we stop asking who's going to save me and start asking how can I contribute, that's how real change has always happened. Not through waiting, wishing, or complaining, but through ordinary people deciding to become extraordinary examples. Every strong family begins with strong individuals. Every strong community begins with strong individuals. Every meaningful change in society begins when ordinary people decide to take responsibility for the one thing they can always influence. You. You're the only thing you can ever influence is yourself. Because the truth is, the moment we stop waiting to be saved is often the moment our lives begin to change. This is what we're building. Like I say, not a movement built on fear, anger, or opposition, but a community built on growth, truth, responsibility, service, courage, and contribution. But we understand that freedom is not something given to us by governments or institutions or leaders. If you don't know you're already free and you still wait for them to tell you are, then it's still got work to do. Freedom begins the moment you stop surrendering responsibility for your own life. And if enough people make that choice, if enough people choose growth over blame, understanding over fear and truth over comfort, responsibility over excuses, then we won't just change our own lives. We'll change our families, our communities, and together we'll help create a better future for everyone around us. Because the future is not something that simply happens to us. The future is something we create right here, right now. So to every member who stayed with us, thank you. Your support matters more than you probably realise. Not because of a membership fee, but because of what your presence represents. It represents a belief that growth matters, a belief that learning matters, a belief that community really matters, a belief that truth matters. And I want you to know none of this is taken for granted, because everyone who chooses to stay, everyone who contributes, participates, or shares an idea, everyone who supports another member helps move this community forward. I genuinely believe that the best days of this community are still ahead of us. And if you're watching this and wondering what actually happens inside the community, let me give you a glimpse, because this video is also for non-members. You'll find people from all walks of life. We have business owners, parents, tradespeople, retirees, people rebuilding their lives, people starting new chapters, facing challenges, and helping others overcome their issues. You'll find discussions that will make you think. You'll find people who will challenge your assumptions respectfully. You'll find practical knowledge, life skills, business ideas, personal development, natural law, health and well-being. As I say, spiritual exploration without dogma. And most importantly, you're going to find people who genuinely want to see one another succeed. Not because they're told to, not because they're paid to, because they understand that when one person grows, the entire community benefits. And in a world that seems increasingly disconnected, that is becoming more valuable than ever. We're also continuing to invest heavily into the future of the community itself. The member development journey is a major part of that vision, because growth shouldn't depend on random videos, scattered information, or trying to figure out everything out alone. There should be a pathway, and I realise that. A structured journey, a way for people to develop their understanding step by step, to build confidence, develop your skills, strengthen your mindset, improve your communication, and deepen your understanding of natural law. And I want people to become more capable in every area of life. Because as I say, our objective is not to create followers, it's to create leaders. Not necessarily leaders of organizations, but leaders of themselves. People who can think independently, act responsibly, and remain calm under pressure. We want people to support each other and contribute positively wherever they go. Because that is what self-governance ultimately looks like. And before anyone decides whether this community is for them, there is one thing worth understanding. This is not a community built around spectators. It's built around participants. You don't have to be an expert. You don't have to have all the answers. You certainly don't have to be perfect. You simply have to be willing to learn, willing to grow, willing to contribute. Because every one of us has something valuable to share, whether you realize it or not. It could be a lesson, a skill, an experience, an insight. It could be an act of encouragement. And often the thing that helps someone else most is the very thing you've already lived through yourself, your traumas. The question isn't whether you have something to offer. The question is whether you're willing to share it. Communities are not built by consumers. They're built by contributors. They're built by people who decide that building something meaningful is more important than standing on the sidelines, waiting for someone else to do it. Everyone matters. Every contribution matters. And every act of service strengthens the whole. And to those of you watching from the outside of the community wondering whether this is for you, let me say this. If you're looking for a magic solution, you won't find it here. If you're looking for someone to tell you what you want to hear, you won't find that either. But if you're looking to learn, grow, understand yourself better, if you're looking to replace fear with knowledge, if you're looking to become more confident, capable, and connected to others walking a similar path, you'll always be welcome. Because as I say, this community is not about fighting a system. It's about becoming the sort of person who can navigate the system using their own tools without fear. It's about becoming the sort of individual person, man, woman, who can face life's challenges with confidence. But it's also becoming the sort of individual who understands that true freedom begins within. I also want to say something to those who have chosen a different path. I genuinely wish you well. There is no bitterness, no resentment, no anger. Everyone must follow their own understanding and make their own choices. But one thing life has taught me is that lasting change is rarely found in shortcuts. It is found in learning, being responsible for your own actions, and in service. It's also found in communities of people who are willing to grow together over time. That is what we are committed to building here. So before I finish this lengthy speech, I want to leave every member, every supporter, and every person watching this with a single question. Not a question for me, for the trustees or the administrators. A question for yourself. What are you contributing? Just take a moment and really think about that. Because it's so easy to ask, what do I get? What benefits do I receive? And what is the community doing for me? But communities become extraordinary when enough people start asking a different question. What am I contributing? Could I help test a process? Could I support a new member? Could I share a skill? Could I attend a Zoom call? Could I complete a training module? Could I offer encouragement? Or could I introduce one person who would benefit from what we're building? So as I say, communities are not built by consumers. They're built by contributors. They are built by people who decide that building something meaningful is more important than standing on the sidelines waiting for somebody else to do it. Everyone matters, every contribution matters, and every member helps shape what this becomes. 5 years from now, if nothing changes, where will your current path take you? Just think on that. But if you spend the next 5 years learning, growing, building relationships, developing skills, understanding yourself more deeply and surrounding yourself with people who genuinely want to see you succeed, how different would your life become? That's the opportunity in front of you. Not a shortcut, loopholes or miracles, but an opportunity to learn, to grow, to contribute, to become more than you are today. And also an opportunity to help build something that lasts way beyond me. Because if this community is still dependent on me 5 years from now, then I will have failed. Simple as that. Because success is not measured by how many people listen to me. Success is measured by how many people become capable of leading, teaching, supporting, serving, creating, helping others. That's self-governance. That's responsibility, and that's community. And that's the future I want to build together. The future isn't something we wait for. It's something we create right here, right now. One decision, one lesson, one act of courage, or an act of service, or a contribution. The door's always open. Journey continues. Let's keep learning. Let's keep growing. Let's keep asking those really difficult questions. Thanks, guys. And let's keep supporting one another. But most of all, let's keep seeking the truth, even when it's really uncomfortable. And let's keep becoming the people we are always capable of becoming. But most importantly, let's build it together. Thank you for listening.